further to look for, and we get our next bullet game.
Okay, here we go. We see we're back to the Italian game. Hans no longer playing c4 on the first move, so back to where we started. What do you make of that decision, the bullet?
Going back to the same opening? I mean, it's something we do kind of when habitually we're just kind of going back to what we know best, right? At this point, he's probably not necessarily thinking he has real comeback chances. I don't know that he would admit that, but at this point, there's 22 minutes. The players know exactly how much time there is. By the way, we've got these great clocks right next to him, right in their line of sight. So when you look at the math and you know what he's up against, I think he's just playing what he feels comfortable with and not much else to it.
Because he just needs to play quickly. He does have a lead on the clock in this game. Black is super solid. Only one pair of pawns have been traded for each side, and now maybe bishops come off the board. But there are no weaknesses, no targets. So Hans is just trying to play quickly, but a bit aimlessly, perhaps.
Yeah. Playing quickly, but maybe aimlessly. And Magnus has gone into this opening every time Hans has chosen it with no real regrets. And, okay, I actually don't know what to make of this middle game. It's different than the earlier ones we had.
Much different. And there's this e4 pawn, which could be seen as a strength if it can push, or a weakness because Black is already staring right at it. And bishop e3 development, that looks good. But the pawn e4, that just dropped. Yes, the d7 queen is loose, so do we see the capture on c5? The moves are happening so quickly, I can't even draw the arrows in time. But this end game here, I'm sure it's a middle game, really. It's one where it's even material, and Danny, the worst part, as we said a game ago, it can last a long time.
This game can last a long time, and again, maybe Magnus is happy to keep pretending to push, right? Even if he doesn't think he can win. If he doesn't feel there are real losing chances, he's just going to milk time off the clock.
But
although now that b-pawn is getting going. You dislodge the queen. Here comes b5.
That looks like a problem, but that did give the c5 square. So, of course, you're happy to develop your bishop from its starting square. And now there's some tactics at play.
The bishop comes to c5. Are there tactics where the knight can move? Somehow the d5 pawn is weak. I'm looking at things like knight c6 and queen takes d5. I don't know if it works, but I do like it.
Well, knight f5 apparently not the correct continuation, but it looks scary. The g7 pawn is in that knight's sights, but d4, look at that move. Just going after the bishop. It's a sacrifice, but Danny, apparently Black may have a knight f4 in the air.
Yeah, knight f4 and g2 is a problem. Don't blunder, but the queen might go to g4 and then g7 is a problem, so right back at you.
It looks like that was not the correct continuation, taking on d4 with the bishop. It was the most natural move, but actually knight f4 could have met by knight c6, shutting down that diagonal, and here knight c6 happens anyway. Black has chances to survive. White is much better, but look at the clock. Magnus down to his final 2 seconds. And we see that in the current position, with the white queening, we have another position where Magnus is down in exchange. He's going to do his best that he can to survive it. But Danny, as we look at this position with limited pawns remaining, that gives Black better chances to hold.
Yeah, and again, if he holds, then he takes a lot more time off the clock, and nothing has changed in terms of the total match score. I think that Hans is going to get this one and bring it back to 5 games.
Just takes a long time. Because in order to win this game, you might need to get your king around or sacrifice your rook for the knight. So if the knight goes back to f3, rook takes f3. In fact, Hans wins on time. Magnus didn't even get the endgame going any longer. Hans makes this a 5-point match once more.
5 points. It's better than 6. We're now about at 20 minutes, getting under the clock here. But 5 games is still a mathematical fighting chance.
And we have a London system from Magnus. I mean, it had to happen at some point in the match. We know that Hans actually did a course in the Jabawa London. And here Magnus, he essays it. It's a very solid opening. Not always the most ambitious, but Magnus doesn't need it be ambitious anymore. He just needs to milk this match clock.
I think these positions are also a little more dangerous than they first look, right? Not the most ambitious, but he does still have the bishop. Still poking at the king side, right? Looking for some tactics.
It's true. I won't deny it. And I met a gentleman from Minnesota earlier who is a fan of Andrew Tang. Andrew Tang loves these positions from the white side, the Penguin GM. But in this position at the moment, well, Black does have the healthier pawn structure, right? We have a pawn chain here. That's double pawns from White's perspective. So the evaluation objectively is level. But I think some of the elements here do favor Black until that move f6. I mean, that move just was a problem.
Yeah, f6 allowed f5. Literally, it happened on the board, and if you play e5, the knight pops into e6, which not just hits the rook, exactly, it hits the d5 pawn and the rook on f8. And by the way, you can't play rook d8 because the knight would take it. So suddenly Black's position on tilt just with one pawn move. Suddenly Ben Feingold looks right.
There was a queen takes d5 tactic that wasn't played, but it doesn't matter because this isolated queen pawn, the IQP, my mom asked me during the break, she said, what's the IQP? It's the isolated queen pawn, but there is a queen pawn no more. It's been captured, and now that knight is protected here. This is just a clear advantage for white.
Clear advantage, a clear pawn, and also one that he can get a lot of time off the clock. Again, these games have been exactly what you would want if you're trying to protect a lead in bullet, right? Regardless of the result that we just had where Hans Niemann won. This is what Magnus wanted heading into bullet.
97,
and now
97
wins the exchange immediately. I said it before you highlighted it. I said it first. Cheeks, 1 through 10, you owe me a Coke.
Well, the most important thing is that Magnus already has a Coca-Cola next to him, and he gets the win with that fork. He is giving up his knight to win a rook. That's an exchange in his favor, and that's another win for Magnus Carlsen. The lead is back to 6 points.
And you hear the fans letting him have it in all the right ways. They are here to see Magnus Carlsen do what he does best, and many Magnus fans in the house cheering him on as he extends his lead here.
13.5, 7.5. It's been a fight, but now with 17 minutes remaining, I think for Hans, he has to win every single game.
Yeah, we're almost in that mathematical territory where it's win or go home in this match. Again, blunders can happen. Sometimes games are short, but when you get this big of a lead, all you have to do is compete against that clock ticking down above Hans's head. That's what makes the format great, but sometimes in matches like this where one side has frankly been dominant and has a large lead, you kind of have to talk about the math, whether you like it or not, and call it what it is, which right now it is almost the end of the road for Hans.
It is looking to be the case, and once again, Magnus, he trades on d4, giving himself an isolated queen pawn. So we keep talking about that today, and wow, the fancy trades here. The queen on f6 looks menacing. If a knight can get to h6, Danny, that's a good old-fashioned checkmate, but watch out for the back rank as well. Oh, wow, he blocks the knight, but he is really playing with fire.
Both sides looking for potential mates. I'm looking at e5 and swing that rook over to the h-file, but Magnus attacks the rook first. Okay, Hans is all in on the attack. I love it whether it works or not. Let's go.
Knight takes h7, does that work?
Knight takes h7 at least wins a pawn, it would seem. No, that was fun.
That was fun, but that's not fun for Hans Niemann. If you're trading queens in this position, your rook's under attack, e4 is loose. The a5, bishop a6 at any moment could be devastating, and it's played.
I think right now it's devastating. Good call out. Here comes bishop a6. Oh, bishop a6 anyways, just threatening mate. That is a problem. Hans kind of puts hand to head and recognizes that it's over there.
I know we have a number of Hans fans in the house, but I think we have a ton of Magnus fans. It seems like there are a lot of fans of what people consider the greatest of all time.
I mean, he's probably got more fans around the world than any chess player. I don't know if it's fair to say that ever lived. I mean, in the modern era, right? I mean, global population stats rise.
Vishy has many fans.
Okay, Vishy actually might rival him there. And India's population there. I mean, but I think a lot of people in India are also big fans of Magnus, right?
It's true.
And the truth is that obviously he's dominant. His reputation precedes him, right? This is what he does. And Magnus Carlsen showed up today and did what he was asked to do.
And he's doing it once more. Hans has more time than he started with. He needs to play at this blistering pace, but we see in the position that the pawn structure is healthier for Magnus Carlsen. He doesn't have any double pawns. Black on the other end, double isolated pawns. That bishop on c8 stuck at home. The a pawn is trying to keep it at bay. And yeah, Hans is going to try to get his pieces out, but Danny, it just looks like it's much more fun to have this from the white side.
Agree. I love that move, rook a3. That is full board awareness. That rook is doing work on both sides of the board. If it swings over, things could get dirty over there. Is he going to take with the rook?
I think he is.
Oh, he does it. Okay, yeah. He might go for a win here and just really put on a show for the fans.
I think knight h5, the bishop is trapped on g7. So that rook, it lifted. It was swift. And the end of this game is also swift. Wow. Resignation, another win for Magnus.
Wow. Magnus Carlsen with an 8-game lead. Putting on the Ritz, was that a thing at one point? I feel like that was a thing.
You try to make everything. Stop trying to make fetch happen.
That was a thing. I don't know what he's doing. He's putting on a show. He's dancing his way to a victory right now, and I think mathematically it is what it is, to say a phrase that means absolutely nothing or means everything in a weird existential way. It is literally what it is.
Well, that was extremely profound.
I don't even know where that came from. Where it happened.
It had to. It's late here in Paris, and it's late in this match. And you see that Magnus Carlsen, he has an 8-point lead. That's the first time we're saying that. And it looks like for Hans, I mean, he's just throwing in the towel. He needs to play instantly. He needs Magnus to lose every game just right out of the gate. And, well, this is actually going to be perhaps a loss for Hans right out of the gate because the evaluation board is -3 already for black.
Yeah, and D3's on the agenda. D3 looks, okay. I think D3 was the best move. But Magnus plays Queen F6. He wants Bishop D6, yeah. A little more easy chess here.
Oh,
but now D3 comes. There's tactics everywhere. Bishop F4 check is next, by the way. Hans Niemann goes down, and ouch. We have a 9-game lead for Magnus Carlsen. He's just kind of like, hey, let's get this over with. I don't even know what he was doing with this.
Next one.
He was okay. He was like, bring it on, bring it on. Let's go, let's roll. That's what Magnus wants. And, well, where do we go from here, right? There was a lot of talk, a lot of drama heading into this match. In the end, the chess on the board was Magnus Carlsen's day.
I mean, Magnus Carlsen is the strongest player on the planet. I have no reservations. Nobody does in saying that. And that doesn't take away from the fact that Hans Niemann is also a very strong player. But when you're facing an in-form, a potentially angry Magnus like this, and he's playing the way he did today. It wasn't perfect. There were some clear mistakes. He blundered a pawn for nothing and still won that game. It just goes to show that when Magnus, he is flexing those muscles, he's the best player on the planet, and really, who's going to stop him?
No one can, right? And not Hans Niemann. I mean, again, we said it on record, off record, whenever we were asked. And again, it's exactly what the media, this match had more attention from non-traditional chess media than anyone we've done in maybe ever. I mean, frankly, in a very long time. And when you get asked the question, like, who's the favorite, who's going to win, you try to find new ways to say it for it to sound politically correct and not just like bias. But the obvious answer is that Magnus Carlsen is the favorite in every chess match that he plays.
It's not disrespectful to say that. I think with all the tension and all the media and the fireworks between these two, it seems like that. But objectively speaking, when you have the #1 rated player playing someone that he outrates by about 100 points in classical chess, and even more in blitz chess, at least in terms of over-the-board ratings, then it's clear that Magnus is the heavy favorite. That's not a disrespectful statement. And I think that between these two, of course, there is a ton of bad blood. I don't think that's ever going to go away. I think that these two, if they play many more matches, we'll see much more of their talking. But I think for Magnus, he is letting his moves do the talking. He is playing a great match, and he's about to win another game as multiple rooks are under attack.
Yep.
And I think that Hans,
guarded, by the way.
Yeah, Hans is getting cooked here.
We've avoided just saying the chess spoke for itself many times, so we should just say it.